Okay, so let's start the radiation safety training at the Institute of Multidisciplinary Research for Advanced Materials, IMRAM, at Tohoku University. So this training is based on the Radiation Prevention Hazard Act and the Radiation Hazard Control Regulations in Japan. My name is Koji Amezawa, and I'm the chair of the Committee of Radiation Hazard Prevention of IMRAM. Okay, so let me start to explain the regulations for radiation hazard preventions. So in Japan, the radiation hazard prevention is based on various laws and regulations listed here. The most important one is the Act on Regulation of Radioactive Materials, etc. And we also have to obey the Industrial Safety and Health Act and the regulation on the prevention of ionizing radiation hazard, which is included in this Industrial Safety and Health Act. So if we use our nuclear reactor or nuclear fuels, the nuclear reactor legislation law is also important that we have to obey. So based on these regulation laws, we have own regulations in Tohoku University and also IMRAM, which is the regulations for the radiation hazard prevention. We have our own radioisotope facilities, and this facility is controlled by these regulations. So actually, this regulation includes the application of the RI regulations for nuclear fuel materials. So in addition, we have our internal regulations of X-ray radiation hazard prevention in IMRAM, which are so-called the Blue Book for X-ray users. So the training for this X-ray radiation hazard is different from one you are taking now. So if you use only X-ray inside IMRAM, please take the Blue Book training. So but if you use X-ray outside IMRAM, like synchrotron radiation experiments, or if you use radioisotope and neutrons, muons, you have to take the Red Book training, which is one you are taking now. In the last few decades, we have some changes on the radiation control issues. The recent trend of the radiation control are listed here. So in 2016, IAEA issued the Integrated Regulatory Review Service, IRRS. So here they recommended the RI handling at emergency and higher level or control. So according to these recommendations, our Japanese government changed the law. And now we have nuclear security and radioactive materials and related facilities, which was published in 2017 and enforced in 2019. The law name is changed from the Radiation Hazard Prevention Act to the Act on the Regulation of Radioactive Material, etc. So this means that now the regulation as well as the prevention of the radioactive materials become a big issue. So they require the radiation safety control and quality control as well. So accordingly, Tohoku University changed our regulations, and now we are working on integration and abolition of the facilities inside the university. And possibly in futures, we will do the same among university in Japan because it is not efficient to do everything by one individual university. So we therefore should think to introduce an inter-university systems and centralization of RI and nuclear materials handling facilities among several universities. Okay, on this occasion, there are something which I like you to keep in mind. The first thing is if you find unidentified or any suspicious radioactive materials or nuclear fuels, I like you to report immediately to us. So you may find a suspicious material in deep inside in a drawer, or seldomly used storage, or long time unopened box, and so on. So please watch out when you clean up old items, and in such a case, please report as soon as possible, even though it is not well identified. So just call Professor Kirishima or me. The second thing, when you visit outside facilities such as Spring 8, Nanotelas, so I like you to bring your own grass patch. So that is one type of radiation dosimetry issued by Tohoku University. So previously, you were not allowed to get into these synchrotron facilities if you don't bring your own grass patch from Tohoku University. But in the case of the Spring 8, for instance, you were not required to do from 2024. So now you are allowed to do the radiation experiment without your grass patch from Tohoku University. So, however, due to the Tohoku University regulations, please continue to bring your own grass badges with you. So now we are planning to change our regulations, and we will announce you as soon as it becomes unnecessary to bring your grass badges. Before that announcement, so repeat again, so please bring your grass badge with you whenever you do the radiation experiments outside Tohoku University. Okay, so now we move to explain the radiation management systems at Tohoku University and IMRAM. The university president and the director of IMRAMs are the most responsible person uh, of these systems. And we have some control divisions in IMRAM, radiation officer, and radiation prevention committees. The radiation officers in IMRAM are Professor Kirishima and Professor Akiyama at the present moment. So they are the persons who take care of all the issues concerning radioisotopes, nuclear fuels, and also the certifications for doing experiments outside IMRAM. And under these divisions, we have two lower divisions. One is the facility divisions, which controls the radioisotope facilities in IMRAM, and the other is the safety divisions, which controls all the radiation safety issues. Ms. Doi and Mr. Yokota and Professor Akiyama, they handle all the facility divisions, and Professor Kirishima and Professor Akiyama, Mr. Yokota, and Mr. Chiber handles the safety divisions. In IMRAM, we have several measures for regulations. One of them is the Committee of Radiation Hazard Prevention. So this committee is the highest level committee for controlling radiation hazard prevention in our institute, IMRAM. The committee consists of the members listed here. The most important persons are senior radiation protection supervisors, who are the Professor Kirishima and Professor Akiyama. They are taking care of everything about radiation issues, and so if something happens, please contact them first. So then we have deputy supervisors, technicians, Miss Dohi and Mr. Chiba. The operation chief of radiography with X-rays, the Professor Momose, the material accountancy manager for nuclear fuels, Dr. Akiyama, and I'm serving as a member of the university wide nuclear science and safety management committees, and the chair of the radiation hazard prevention committees. And now, and the other committee members of Professor Kameoka and Professor Abukawa, and finally, Mr. Sone is joining this committee as a manager of secretary. So another measure for the safety issue in IMRAM is the Safety Management Office, which is led by Professor Kameoka. So this Safety Management Office has a lot of different activities relating to the safety in general. And one of them is the safety relating to the X-ray and radiation. So for this purpose, an X-ray and radiation team is formed under the Safety Management Office. The leader of this team is Professor Momose, and the other members listed here as assigned for each building. So if you have some concerns about the safety relating to the X-ray and radiation, so you can also contact to one of these members assigned to your building. So all of them are happy to help you. So before going to explain the details of the radioisotope facilities in IMRAM, I would like to just summarize the radioisotope facilities in Katahira campus. So Tohoku University. So the IMR, the Kinken Institute of Materials Research, and also the Graduate School of Life Science, and we, IMRAM, have such facilities. Historically, IMRAM has several radioisotope facilities, but now we recognize them into only one facilities here. So if you like to use radioactive materials in IMRAM, so you are allowed to do it only here, not anywhere else. So this is the radioisotope facilities in IMRAM. So in this building, you can do the experiment using the various kinds of radioisotope materials. And also you can use nuclear fuel materials, including uranium and thorium. So actually, there are not so many facilities where you are allowed to use the nuclear fuel materials in Japan, and therefore I would say this is the highest ranked regulatory facilities in our university, and have been passed through very restrict inspections by NRA or IAEA several times. So because of such specialties, excellent studies, for instance, study on the extraction of the uranium and thorium from the ore, or a study of the waste management of the nuclear fuel have been done so far in this institute. So all the various types of the radiation works are carried out in IMRAM. The most common one is the experiment using the labo-based X-ray instrument like this. So indeed, there are so many X-ray instruments in IMRAM. Such works are not controlled by RI or nuclear fuel rules, but by the X-ray rules, so-called Blue Book regulations. So, but all of you are registered as RI or nuclear fuel workers, so-called red books holders. So, and therefore, you are allowed to use the X-ray instrument without any other additional quantifications. So that means a red book holder is automatically a blue book holders. So recent labo-based X-ray instruments are so well made, so it is quite rare to have radiation outside the instrument. But please use your glass batch radiation dosimetry when you do any experiment using X-ray. Concerning X-ray related issues, I recognize many of you used X-ray at synchrotron, such as Spring 8, Nanotelas, photon factories, and so on. In such a case, please remember you need to take the lead book training. So because the synchrotron facilities use an accelerator with very high energies. So in other words, the blue book holders are not allowed to do the experiment at synchrotron facilities. Even the experiment is the X-ray experiments. I also like to remind you that the lead book training at Tohoku University is not sufficient to do the synchrotron experiment, and you are required to take another lead book training at each synchrotron facilities. Similar thing can be said when you do the experiment using the neutron or muon at the accelerator facilities such as J Park. So what is more, if you like to do the neutron experiments at a nuclear reactor based on the nuclear neutron facilities such as JRR3 or KUR, you need to take a more advanced qualification for using the nuclear fuel materials because the nuclear reactors, of course, uses the nuclear fuel, even though you yourself do not use the nuclear fuel in your experiments. As I mentioned so far, there are some quantification for using the radiations, including X-ray, neutron, radioisotope, nuclear fuel, and so on. So they are a bit complicated, and therefore I here summarize what kind of qualifications and what kind of trainings you need to depending on type of experiments. So if we use only a X-ray, lab-based X-ray instruments, you need the Blue Book training. So that's it. So for getting the Blue Book, you have to take two training. One is the X-ray training at Tohoku University, and the other is the X-ray training at IMRAM. So these trainings are only a few users, and it is okay to take only once each as long as you are in the Tohoku University. So on the other hand, if you like to do the synchrotron experiments outside IMRAM, you need to take the lead book training. For these qualifications, you are required to take a university-wide lecture training at the beginning of your registrations, and then the radiation training at IMRAM, which you are taking now. So one thing you have to keep in mind is you need to take this IMRAM training every year. And if you like to do experiment using RI or neutron, you need to take the lead book training, but you should know that the training for RI or neutron experiment is a bit different from one for the synchrotron experiments. So in this case, RI and the neutron experiments case, so you need to take the university-wide hands-on trainings in addition to the lecture training. And again, you need to take the radiation training at IMRAM every year. So some of you may do all of these experiments. In such a case, you don't need to take each of these three qualifications. So if you take the qualification to use RI and or neutron, you can or you are allowed to also use to synchrotron radiations and X-ray. So if you take the qualification to use the synchrotron radiations, you are allowed to use the X-ray in IMRAM. So however, please note that people having the qualification for the synchrotron cannot use the RI or neutron, even though you have the lead books. So the lead books for synchrotron radiation and lead books for RI and neutron experiments are a bit different. So if you have used only X-ray and like to start synchrotron radiations or RI neutron experiments, or if you have the synchrotron radiation used synchrotron radiation and like to do the RI or neutron experiments, you will need to take these upper graded qualifications. So furthermore, in addition to the registration of these three type of the qualifications, you have to take a special medical check as required by the Japanese national regulations and laws to judge whether if it is safe for you to do the radiation works. And then finally, you can get the glass badges from the IMRAM and conduct the radiation experiments. So that's a way. The medical or examination, or I mentioned in the previous slide, is called an ionizing radiation medical examination, and you must be taken twice a year. So please note that this is different from the general medical examination that you takes once every year. So in some cases, in addition to this medical examination, some of you may also be required to take another medical examination twice a year, uh, which is called the medical examination for specific workers. So this is for the people who are constantly exposed to the radiations. So according to the IMRAM's criteria, if you do radiation work more than once a week throughout the year, so please take this health examination for specific workers in addition to this ionizing radiation medical examinations. So this table shows how many people are working on the radiation work at IMRAM in 2025. 65, 224, 112 people have read books for RI, read books for synchrotron, and blue books for X-ray, respectively. That means totally 401 people are working on the radiation work in our IMRAM. So you can recognize IMRAM is a very large institute with many radiation workers. The most important thing for us is, of course, to conduct our experiment safely and in good health. For this, please make sure that you attend this training every year and take a medical examination at least twice a year. So at the medical examination, if there is no change in your work and if you have no health problems, it is possible to have only a medical interview. But of course, the health is most important issue. So please do not forget to take the medical examination twice a year, at least. So here I show the list of the organization to which we issued the certification as a radiation worker in 2025. So you need this certification if you do experiments outside Tohoku University. So you can find, for instance, Riken, which uh, control, controls the Spring 8 or Sakura on the top of the list. In total, we have 214 certifications for the radiation workers. So this is also actually very quite large numbers, which indicates that people at IMLAM are working very actively at outside facilities. So that is, of course, very good, but please continue to do experiments safely at the outside facilities. So I would also like to briefly explain about the glass badges that the personal radiation dosimeters. So this is given by from IMRAM to all of you. So regarding the grass badges, there are three things which we like to ask you. The first is it is mandatorily to take this grass badge whenever you do radiation experiment using RI, neutron, synchrotron X-ray, or lab-based X-ray. So you are required to bring it also when you do the radiation experiment at the outside facilities like Spring 8, Nanoteras, J-Park, or even at the facility outside Japan. So because at this moment we have no way to obtain your radiation dose record from the outside facilities to our university systems. Okay. The second is how to deal with unexpected radiation exposures. So when you go to outside facilities for the radiation experiments, so you may take an airplane with your glass badges. So then it sometimes happens that you pass your glass badges through the but baggage check at the airport. So actually, I myself have done this several times in the past. Or you may leave your glass batches in the experimental instruments that generates radiations. So in such a case, the unexpected radiation exposures may be recorded by your glass batches. However, so those are mistake record and not the radiation that you are exposed to during your radiation or work. So we have to delete such a mistake record. For this purpose, if there is a possibility that you have accidentally exposed a glass budget to the radiations, please report it immediately to us. The important thing is immediately. So if this it is before the dose record is fixed, the record can be deleted if we have a clear reason. However, after the record is fixed, the procedures becomes more complicated. So therefore, if you have accidentally passed your glass batches through the airport inspection, or if you have left your glass batches in an instrument while conducting experiments, please contact us as soon as possible. Okay? And finally, the third is please use an appropriate type of the glass batches for your experiments. So there are actually different types of glass batches depending on the type of the radiation being handled. So we typically use two different type of glass batches. One is NS type for RI and neutron experiments, and the other is the FS type for X-ray, gamma ray, and beta ray. So this is noted here on the glass batches here. Okay. And since the NS type for RI or neutron experiments are very expensive, so please use the FS type if you don't use the RI or neutrons. It is also possible to normally use the FS type, but tentatively use an S type only when you use the RI or neutrons. So in such a cases, please contact us. So here are the results of the exposure control at IMRAM last year. Radiation exposure has not been recorded for most of us. However, in a few cases, small doses of radiation exposures were recorded. For instance, in last years, there was 3 cases in which radiation exposures of zero point 0.1 millisievert was recorded. So on the other hand, the more common type of the exposure is, so to say, the unexpected exposures, which, as I mentioned earlier, was caused by the, for instance, accidentally passing glass batch through the baggage check at the airport and so on. So again, I like to ask you, so if you suspect radiation exposures due to such mistakes, so please contact us as soon as possible. Okay, so now I'd like to conclude this year's radiation safety training. Well, in summary, those who are engaged in the radiation work and are required to take this radiation safety training every year. You are also required to take a special medical examination for ionizing radiation at least twice a year. And for your personal radiation exposure management, uh, measurements are taken by dosimeters, glass patches, and recorded in your record. As for the daily management, of course, please ensure that there is no accident, no fires, and the securities. In the event of the disaster, please ensure safety and report immediately. Okay. If something happens, please report it immediately. One of us, Professor Kirishima, Dr. Akiyama, who are the chief of the radiation handling at IMRAM, or our technician, Miss Dohi, or Mr. Chiber, who are the deputy chiefs, use, and me as a chair of the committee of the radiation hazard prevention. Okay, so well, that's all. Thank you very much for your kind attentions.